Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. All right, I'm continuing on with load development with the Accurate 2460 and the Hodgdon H335 powder. And today we're going to be shooting a Hornady 53 grain VMAX bullet. These particular powders are rather fast burning. These are numbers 92 and 93 out of 170 on the Hornady burn rate chart. They're pretty fast burning, and as I understand, fast burning powders tend to work better with lighter weight bullets. So we're going to try these. We're going to shoot these at 24.6, 24.8, 25, 25.2, and 25.4 grains of powder. According to the Hornady manual, the charge weights for the H335 only go up to 25.4 grains of powder, and it's supposed to produce 3,200 feet per second in velocity, whereas the Accurate 2460 has charge weights that take it up to 3,400 feet per second. But I wanted to shoot these at the same charge weight, so we're going to go up to the max charge weight on the H335, which is 25.4 grains of powder. All right, so stay tuned. More to come. All right, welcome back to the channel. Once again, we're at the Georgia Gun Club's 100-yard indoor rifle range, and today I'm shooting my Tikka T3X chambered in Remington 223, mounted in an MDT ARCS chassis with an Arken 6-24x50 rifle scope. And today we're continuing our study comparing two powders, the Accurate 2460 and the Hodgdon's H335. These are very similar in their burn rate, and I believe these will perform better with a lighter bullet. You saw in the previous video that they didn't group very well with the 73 grain ELD match, and that's because these are a faster burning powder. So we're going to try these today with the 53 grain VMAX and see how those perform. All right, as always, you're welcome to enjoy the music while I fast forward through my shooting, or you can skip forward to the results that follow, shooting at 100 yards. All right, we had kind of a mixed bag here. Some of these shot pretty well, but let's bring them in and take a look. All right, so right here on the H335 at 24.6 grains, we've got a really tight group here, round group here, stringing vertically, kind of tight over here. These on the Accurate 2460 are just kind of so-so, mostly spread out at 24.8 grains of powder. That performed pretty well. But anyway, we'll take these home, measure these, and get back to you with the results. All right, I'm back from the range, and I've had a chance to measure my targets and compare the results. Of course, we're comparing two different powders here, the Accurate 2460 and the Hodgdon H335. These are both very fast burning powders, and as suggested previously, it looks like these probably will work better with a lighter bullet, given that it's a faster burning powder. I was able to identify 4 groups that seemed to perform pretty well, and we're going with charge weights. The maximum charge weight for the H335 is 25.4 grains. We could have gone higher on the Accurate 2460, but we wanted to compare the same charge weight for both powders. So we worked backwards from 25.4 in 0.2 grain increments to 25.2, 25, 24.8, and 24.6 grains of powder. At 24.6 grains of powder, the Accurate 2460 had a group size of 1.69 inches. These clustered fairly well right here, but there was a flyer out here to the side, and that's what caused that group to open up. We had an average velocity of 29.58 and a standard deviation of 23.7. At that bottom charge weight, the H335 performed a good bit better. It had a group size of 0.43 inches and a mean radius of 0.14. So as I've said before, a radius is half of a circle. And so if you take that mean radius of 0.14 and you double that, then that gives you an average group size of 0.28 inches. We had an average velocity of 3,069 and a standard deviation of 17.6. Now, because this was at the lowest charge weight, and as we increased the charge weights, the group seemed to open up, except for this last group. Even though it was opened up, it had a pretty tight mean radius. So anyway, since the groups are opening up at the higher charge weights, I'm wondering if there might be a load there below that 24.6 that might perform better, because we're at 3,000 feet per second right there at the 24.6 grains. So we've got a little bit of room there to back that charge down and see if maybe we can get that group to tighten up with the H335 powder. Moving on to 24.8 grains, we had a pretty decent group with the Accurate 2460 at 0.60 inches with a mean radius of 0.22. We had an average velocity of 29.99 and a standard deviation of 24.9. With the H335, we had a pretty decent group with a group size of 0.74 inches and a mean radius of 0.35. We were traveling at 3,124 feet per second in velocity with a mean radius of 24.5. At 25 grains of powder, we're still opening up here, and the Accurate 2460 has a group size of 1.22 inches, has an average velocity of 3,026, and a standard deviation of 17.6. The H335 has a group size of 0.99 with an average velocity of 3161.8 and a standard deviation of 29.1. At 25.2 grains of powder, we continue to open up at 1.3 inches with the Accurate 2460, an average velocity of 3,053 and a standard deviation of 20.1. The H335 had a group size of 1.11 with an average velocity of 3162. This one had a standard deviation of 72.2. Don't know what happened here, but we had an extreme spread of 189.4 feet per second on that group. So just wild on the velocity there. I have no idea what happened with that. At 25.4 with the Accurate 2460, we've got an average group size of 1.25 inches, average velocity of 3,056, and a standard deviation of 17.1. With the H335, we've got a group size of 1.06, and I'm marking this one because in spite of the fact that we had a flyer over here making the group over an inch, we had 4 clustered together really tightly that gave it a mean radius of 0.35, which would give you an average group size of 0.7 inches. So not too bad there. We had an average velocity of 3265 and a standard deviation of 22.5. If you take all of these rounds and average them together, The average on the Accurate 2460 had an average group size of 1.21 inches. And with the H335, we had an average group size of 0.87 inches. And I do notice here that the groups open up as the velocity increases. We start out here at 1.69, but we had a flyer there. Then we go to 0.60, then to 1.22, then to 1.3 and 1.25 inches. So as the velocity is increasing, those groups are opening up. With the H335, we started off at 0.43, then we go to 0.74, 0.99, 1.11, and 1.06. So also opening up. So this leads me to think that maybe there might be a group on the other side of this velocity node, lower, less than 24.6, where we might get some good grouping. So that's worth checking out. So the takeaway here is the fast burning powders do seem to work better with these lighter weight bullets. There is also still some room for improvement here. With the H335, our first group at 24.6 had a group size of 0.43 with a mean radius of 0.14. So that's an area where we can focus on maybe the powder charge a little bit, maybe focus on seating depth, and possibly experiment with neck tension as well. All right, so these are my results. I hope you find this information helpful. If you have any ideas, thoughts, suggestions, or questions, please leave those in the comments below. I try to interact with everybody that comments. I hope you will like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.